Hello everyone. Today we are finishing up Luke chapter 11. We're beginning at verse 37, taking it to the end of the chapter, verse 54. Now at this stage in Luke's gospel, it's become clear that Jesus has been he has had some challenges with the Pharisees and the teachers of religious law. And even though he challenges them, it's not to say that he considers them his enemies. In fact, certainly that is not the case. He loves and cares for them, and he's challenging them because he wants to call them to be something better. Given that, then it's no surprise that as we pick up in today's reading, that Jesus, being invited to have dinner with a Pharisee, was certainly going to accept. But unfortunately, things go wrong very early in the meal. We'll pick up at verse 38, where we read this. His host was amazed to see that he sat down to eat without first performing the hand-washing ceremony required by Jewish custom. Now let me pause for just a moment here to be clear that Jesus was in no way hygienically challenged. This was a very ritualistic ceremony that Jews performed before a formal meal. It had nothing to do with hygiene and making sure that your hands were simply clean of germs. It was all about ritual cleanliness. Jesus chooses to forego those formalities and just sit down to have a meal with this guy. But we see that this bothers his host. And aware of that, here's how Jesus responds. Then the Lord said to him, "You Pharisees are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and wickedness." We oftentimes use a triangle to illustrate the dimensions of our community's relationship with God and one another. On the triangle, we have the up, which represents our worship of God. On the bottom right, we have the in, which represents our fellowship and fellowship in community with one another. And on the bottom left is out, which represents our witness, our outreach to the world around us as we share our faith. This same triangle can be used to illustrate our own individual lives, where up is our relationship with God, where in represents our self-awareness in terms of spiritual and emotional health, and the out is our behavior, how we actually engage in the world. Jesus is challenging the Pharisees today by saying that your concern about behavior reveals that internally you are not healthy. You are filthy, full of greed and wickedness, which then indicates that they have a poor relationship with the Father in the first place. The poet, author, and hip-hop writer Jackie Hill Perry, in a presentation she gave just a few months ago, had this powerful statement where she said, "At the root of all sin is unbelief in the word and worth of God." What she meant there essentially is that regardless of what we profess our beliefs to be, our behavior is an actual reflection of those actual beliefs. So we may be saying one thing, but our behavior will reveal what's really going on in our hearts. Jesus is challenging the Pharisees today to say, what's really going on in your hearts? Why are you so concerned about a symbol, a ceremony, a ritual, when there's so many other things that you should be focusing your energy on? Now, I'd like to think that if somebody challenged me to say that perhaps my behaviors reflected something being off-center in my spiritual identity, that I would stop and be introspective. Here's how the Pharisees respond, beginning at verse 53. As Jesus was leaving, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees became hostile and tried to provoke him with many questions. They wanted to trap him into saying something they could use against him. Rather than being insightful, taking Jesus' criticism and carefully evaluating their own hearts to see if there is any truth in it, instead they go on the offensive. They try to go after Jesus to discredit him, because if they can discredit Jesus, then they can ignore the challenge that he's issued. I suspect we are all guilty of the same thing. When we're challenged by somebody with a piece of information that may have some truth to it, we don't like it. We don't like being challenged. We don't like having to look in the mirror and recognize our sinfulness and our brokenness. God comes into our life to help reveal that stuff specifically so that we can lift it up to Him and strengthen our relationship with our God and Father through Jesus Christ. A pastor friend of mine liked to say that Jesus came to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. Sometimes I think that I have become comfortable, and I need God's affliction in my life to challenge me, to help me to recognize where my sin continues to overtake me. So that's my invitation for all of us today, that we go out into this world today being aware of the fact that we are sinful and broken, and that sometimes our behaviors will be a reflection of that brokenness. But it's also an opportunity for us to surrender that brokenness to our Father, who seeks to heal and restore us. So go and be healed, visibly and publicly in front of others. Be honest and genuine about who you are, because as people see God at work in you, transforming your life, then they'll be open to allowing Him into theirs. Have a great day, everyone. If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.